Hi everybody, my name is Nathan O'Connor with Reotemp, and today we're at Agri-Service in Oceanside, California, and I'm here with Alex, and we're going to do a demonstration of how the OxyTemp works. So the OxyTemp probe, it's a combination of both an oxygen probe and then also a temperature probe. So you get two readings at the same time, and with the oxygen sampling, you're going to use a plunger to pull up and press down that sample. There's two positions. You've got your sampling position and then also a clean out position. So if it gets clogged, you can then flush that clogged tip back out and go back to sampling. So with that, Alex, would you give us a demonstration?
Absolutely. So like you said, first thing I'd normally do, just clean the tip out in case I went to a pile previous to that. I want to clean that out. Once I do that, I can put it back into the sampling position. A bit of press. I like to slowly do a couple of pumps just to get that oxygen in there, get the reading.
Yeah. So this first couple, you're just kind of cleaning out the existing air, and then on the third one, the fourth one, you're getting a better idea of what the actual reading is going to be.
Correct.
Okay. So it looks like we're at about 15.6% oxygen. And as that air is moving down and kind of slowly across the sensor, that's when you're going to get that reading. So you can see how Alex did a nice job of moving the plunger down slowly, makes a solid flow of air across this oxygen sensor and then back out. And that's what's going to give you your good, accurate oxygen reading. So looks like you guys have a lot of oxygen in there.
Yeah, it's a nice healthy pile, so.
Very nice. All right, well, thanks, Alex. Okay, so Mary, you guys got one of our OxyTemp probes about 4 years ago?
Correct.
Okay, and has the OxyTemp been something that, did you have an oxygen probe before the OxyTemp?
No, we didn't. And what we were interested in doing was as we were looking at designing a new facility, that we would have forced aeration into our windrow piles to help control odor. We were really interested in doing some studies where we get quick readings on how much oxygen we needed to have in our windrows under our conditions with our feedstocks to help mitigate any malodorous compounds when we were turning. So we found that the OxyTemp was ideal for us because it was reasonably priced, easy to use, and almost completely trouble-free. I mean, we've never had a problem with it.
Okay, so as you made that transition to positive aeration, this helped you to sample it, understand how the oxygen was coming up into the pile, and really kind of maximize the process?
Exactly. And what we found when we looked at different kinds of oxygen probes is that there's a tendency to want to put a stationary probe inside one of the windrows. And in talking to other operators all over the country, we found that there was a failure rate eventually with those. And so instead of having an automated system, we really feel it's important to go out with a handheld probe and look at all the other factors that are important in producing compost. How much moisture's in the pile, whether or not we smell anything coming from the pile that we need to be concerned about. And you can't do that with an automated probe, but we can do that when we take our daily temperatures.
Great. What was it that originally made you guys want to get an OxyTemp probe?
So we needed a way of quickly assessing the amount of oxygen that was inside our windrows. And the reason that that's important to a compost facility is the amount of oxygen is really related to the amount of odor that is produced when we turn piles. And so what we want to do is make sure that we have sufficient oxygen to make sure that all of the organisms, microorganisms that are involved in the decomposition process are ones that aren't producing those smelly gases. So what we found when we were first doing experiments with adding air to the pile with forced positive aeration was that we were trying different feedstocks, different moisture levels, different amounts of air we were pushing into the pile, and how we could personally assess the odor when we turned it. And we found that under our conditions, and I'm not saying it's anybody else's conditions, everybody has to do their own testing, but under our conditions, if we keep the oxygen over 10%, and we measure that with the OxyTemp. If we can keep it over 10%, we don't have the kinds of malodorous compounds that are drifting off during turning and screening.
And I imagine the odors with your facility and with all facilities, that can be a major issue with some of the surrounding residents or with the city. So odor's a big issue?
Odor is one of the two big issues with facilities, and being able to control odor is really, really important to having the neighbors accept the facility. So it's probably the #1 reason compost facilities are shut down.
So was this something where you used the oxygen probe more in the beginning, and then eventually you started to understand what the compost was going to do, so you didn't need to use it as much? How did that?
Right. We used the oxygen probe a lot in the beginning, and the reason we did that was so that we could better understand how our operations and our management practices affected the amount of oxygen inside the windrows. So now we have it pretty down, and we make sure that we test all the windrows in 6 different places once a week, just to make sure we don't have any clogged aeration channels.
Okay. Great. Yeah, it seems like you're getting lots of oxygen in there, so you guys are doing a good job with it. All right, well, I think that pretty much wraps it up for the OxyTemp, and thanks again, Mary. Thank you, Alex, for letting us check your compost and demonstrate how the OxyTemp works.